Hi, my name is Everett, a 7-year-old kid. Today I'm reading Blizzard of the Blue Moon by Mary Pope Osborne. Magic Tree House Series, book number 37, A Merlin Mission. Just a few seconds here. It's taking me a long time to get to the page. Okay, prologue. Once in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania, a mysterious treehouse appeared in the woods. A brother and sister named Jack and Annie soon learned that the treehouse was magic. It could take them to any time and place in history. They also learned that the treehouse belonged to Morgan Le Fay, a magic librarian from the legendary realm of Camelot. After Jack and Annie traveled on many adventures in Magic Treehouse from Morgan, Merlin the magician began sending them on Merlin missions. In the treehouse, with help from two young sorcerers named Teddy and Kathleen, Jack and Annie visited 4 mythical places and found valuable objects to help save Camelot. For their next 4 missions, Jack and Annie were told they must travel to real times and places in history and prove to Merlin that they could use magic wisely. First, they went on a mission to the city of Venice. Next, they journeyed to the city of Baghdad. On their most recent trip, they visited the city of Paris in 1889. Now they are waiting to hear from Merlin again. Chapter 1, The Last Unicorn. The November sky was gray with clouds. Jack sat reading in front of the living room fire. "Who wants hot chocolate?" their dad called from the kitchen. "Me, please," said Jack. The front door burst open, and with a gust of cold wind, Annie rushed inside. "Jack, guess what?" she whispered. "It's back." "How do you know?" said Jack. "I was walking home from the library." Annie paused to catch her breath. "And I saw a flash above the sky above the woods." The last time that happened, before she could finish the sentence, Jack jumped up. "Dad, can Annie and I go outside for a while?" he shouted. "Can the hot chocolate wait till we get back?" "Sure, have fun," their dad called from the kitchen. "I have to get my pack," Jack said to Annie. "Me on the porch." "Don't forget the rhyme book," said Annie. Annie slipped outside and Jack ran up to his room. He grabbed his backpack. He checked to make sure the book of magic rhymes was inside. Good, there it was. 10 magic rhymes from Teddy and Kathleen for Jack and Annie. Jack charged downstairs. He pulled on his boots, put on a jacket, tied a scarf around his neck, grabbed his mittens, and headed out the door. "Come on," said Annie. Jack could see his breath in the cold air. "Brrr," he said. "Let's hurry." Jack and Annie ran down the street and into the Frog Creek woods. They wove between the trees, their boots crunching over the fallen leaves. Jack stopped. The magic treehouse was back, high in a tall tree. It was silhouetted against the gray November sky. "You were right," he said to Annie. "Good work." "Thanks," she said. Annie ran to the rope ladder and started up. Jack followed. When they climbed into the treehouse, Jack and Annie saw a book and a scroll of parchment paper lying on the floor. Annie picked up the scroll, unrolled it, and read aloud. "Dear Jack and Annie from Frog Creek, I'm sending you on another mission to prove that you can use magic wisely. This poem will guide you. M. The very last unicorn is now hidden well, but by those who have put him under a spell. 4 centuries, 4 decades from that afternoon, at the end of November before the blue moon. He will wake once more and be free to go home. If you call his name, divine flower of Rome, you must coax him to stand once his name is spoken. His chain will break and the spell too be broken. Then the young girl must love him and show him the way, lest he be trapped forever on public display. If he loses this chance to rise and depart, all magic will fade from his horn and his heart." "A unicorn," said Annie. "I love him already. I'll show him the way." "But this poem sounds really hard to understand, said Jack. What kind of research book did Morgan give us? He picked up the book that had been left for them by Morgan Le Fay, the librarian of Camelot. The cover showed a row of skyscrapers. The title was New York City Guidebook, 1938. New York City, said Annie. I love New York City. Remember the time we had with our Aunt Mallory? Yeah, I love it too, said Jack. But why would the unicorn be hidden in New York City in 1938? A unicorn is an ancient fantasy creature. New York City is a real place. In 1938 is not even that long ago. Right, said Annie. It sounds like a hard mission. Don't forget we have Tidy and Kathleen's book of magic rhymes. Yeah, said Jack. He pulled out the book given to them by their friends Tidy and Kathleen, two young enchanters from Camelot. The problem is we can only use each rhyme once, and we've already used 7 out of the 10, which means we still have 3 left, said Annie. What are they? Pull a cloud from the sky, said Jack. Cool, said Annie. Yeah, it is, said Jack, but I'm not sure it'll be much help. He looked back at the book. Find a treasure you must never lose, he said. Yeah, that's a really good one, said Annie. The unicorn is a treasure, so the rhyme could take care of our whole mission. But it only partly fits, said Jack. You could call him a treasure, but once we find him, we have to lose him. He has to go back home. Oh, right, said Annie. What else? Your favorite, said Jack. Turn into ducks. Annie laughed. I can't wait to use that one, she said. I hope we never use that one, said Jack. He didn't want to waddle around and quack like a duck. These leftover rhymes don't seem very helpful to me, he said. Well, let's just wait and see, said Annie. But now she held up Morgan's research book and smiled. Jack nodded. New York City, here we come, he said. He pointed to the book's cover. I wish we could go there, he said. The wind started to blow. The trail started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. Who are they? Snow blew into the trash. Jack and Annie wore wool caps, hats, and mittens. Jack's canvas knapsack had turned into a leather briefcase with buckles and a shoulder strap. Jack and Annie looked out the window. Below the trash was a wide, snowy-covered field that ended in a wall of green, evergreen trees. Beyond the trees was a city skyline. This is definitely New York City, remember? Said Annie. See that? Remember? You see that? See that? Empire State Building? Remember our visit to the top? She pointed to a faraway building that rose above the others. This must be Central Park. I remember that big field. Yeah, I do too, said Jack. But we've landed in New York City. It was different back then. He opened the research book and read from the introduction. The city of New York is the largest city in the Western Hemisphere. It covers an area of 322 square miles. Jack closed the book. Whoa, even in New York City in 1938, New York was a huge city, he said. This is going to be like looking for a needle in a haystack. I'll read our mission poem again, said Annie. She read the first verse. The very last unicorn is now hidden well by those who have put him under a spell. Okay, so this unicorn was put under a spell, said Jack. And he must be hidden somewhere in New York City, or Merlin wouldn't have sent us here. Right, said Annie. She read the next verse. 4 centuries, 4 decades from that afternoon, at the end of November, before the blue moon. What's a blue moon? Asked Annie, looking up. I've heard that expression before. It's when you have 2 full moons in the same month, said Jack. It doesn't happen very often. Oh, said Annie. She read on. You will wake once more and be free to go home if you call it his name, Divine Flower of Rome. Wait, does that mean the unicorn's name is Divine Flower of Rome? Asked Jack. I guess, Annie. She read on. You must coax him to stand once his name is spoken. His chain will break and the spell too be broken. Then a young girl must love him and show him the way, lest he be trapped forever on public display. If he loses this chance to rise and depart, all magic will fade from his horn and his heart. So I'm the young girl, said Annie, and I'll show him the way home, or his magic will fade away forever. Right, said Jack. Okay, let's review. There's a unicorn on public display somewhere in New York City. He's under spell. The spell runs out in late November before a blue moon, but he'll only wake up when someone calls his name, which is Divine Flower of Rome. Then a young girl, you must love him and show him the way home. Great, said Annie. Let's get started. Get started? How, said Jack. Maybe we should talk to some New Yorkers, said Annie. Maybe they can help us. Or maybe they can help us. Or maybe some of them know anything about a unicorn in New York City. She looked out the window. There are some people in the park right now. Jack looked out. Through the falling snow, he saw girls crossing the field carrying skates. He saw two people standing on the top of a small hill. One wore a cape and the other a long raincoat. If we start asking people about unicorns, they'll think we're crazy, said Jack. Who cares, said Annie. Maybe someone will at least know something about that can help us. Let's go down. She started down the rope ladder. Jack quickly packed up the book. He buckled his bag and followed her. They stepped onto the ground. Jack and Annie looked around. The scares were gone, and the two people were gone, too, that were on the hill. Where'd everybody go, said Jack. I don't know, but I'm sure we'll find something else, said Annie. Jack and Annie started across the wide field. The snow was falling fast and furious. The wind blew harder. Look, a frozen pond, said Annie, pointing. That must be where the skaters were coming from. Wet snow stuck to Jack's glasses. He wiped them off so he could see. No one was skating on the pond now. Whirls of powdery snow swirled out over the ice. Keep going, said Jack. They kept trudging through the snow. Hey, look, remember that, said Annie. What, said Jack. He wiped off the glasses again. He saw a merry-go-round. Oh, yeah, on their trip to New York with their Aunt Mallory, they had taken a ride on it, but now the riderless painted horses look sad and lonely. I feel like we're the last living creatures in Central Park, said Jack. Which way did we come? Asked Annie. Which way do we go? It was hard to see anything in the white haze of the falling snow. The buildings bordering the park and the skyscrapers in the distance had disappeared. Let's see what the book says, said Jack. He unbuckled his leather briefcase and pulled out the research book. He found a picture of Central Park in red. Central Park is a vast nature area in the middle of New York City. The park has 32 miles of winding footpaths and covers 840 acres of land. It has rock formations, woods, and many bodies of water. It also has... Okay, got it, said Annie. It's a big park. Is there a map that shows where we are? Jack tried to reach from the index, but the wind and snow made it impossible. He stuffed the book back into his briefcase. Forget it, he said. Let's just try to get out of the park. Jack and Annie turned away from the lonely merry-go-round and walked across the snow. A gust of wind blew Jack's cap off. As he turned around to grab it, he saw a couple walking a short distance behind them. The two people looked like teenagers. They were walking with their heads bowed against the wind. The girl wore a dark cape with a hood, and the other wore a tan raincoat with a belt. Hey, look, Jack said to Annie, but at that moment the wind shook the trees and the big clumps of snow fell from the branches. Jack and Annie ducked and covered their heads. Then, when the wind died down, Jack looked around for the couple. They're gone, he said. Who's gone, said Annie. Who'd you see? Teenagers, I think, said Jack. A boy and a girl. We saw them earlier from the treehouse. I think they might be following us. Wait a second, said Annie. Two teenagers, a boy and a girl following us? Who does that remind you of? A big smile crossed Jack's face. Teddy and Kathleen, he said. Think about it, said Annie. On our last 3 missions, it seemed like Teddy and Kathleen were always nearby wearing disguises ready to help us when we needed it. Right, said Jack. We could sure use some help now. He turned around. Hello, he shouted. Hello, Annie yelled, but the wind answered them with a howl. Howl! More clumps of snow blew down on Jack and Annie. Let's get going, said Annie. They'll find us sooner or later. They always do. Chapter 3, Lost in Central Park. Jack and Annie kept walking until they came to a nice pond again. We've been here before, said Jack. We're going in circles. We have to get out of this park. We have to try walking in a straight line, said Annie. She and Jack struggled on. Jack kept looking back, trying to catch up Teddy and Kathleen again, but it was getting harder and harder to see anything. Wet snow kept sticking to his glasses. Snow had blown up the sleeve of his jacket, under his neck scarf, and in his mittens. Yikes, Annie, she grabbed Jack's arm. Look! A huge wolf-like dog stood on the ledge above them, his mouth open. Whoa, said Jack. The dog didn't move. He stood perfectly still. Annie laughed. Oh, he's a statue, she said. She ran to a plank under the dog's statue, brushed off the snow, and shouted to Jack. His name is Balto. In 1925, he carried medicine 600 miles through a blizzard in Alaska. That's really great, said Jack. But how do we get out of the park? Well, if we follow this path, it's bound to lead somewhere, said Annie. Jack followed Annie up a wide path. They walked, passing a snow-covered outdoor stage and a fountain with the statue of an angel. Rising her outspread wings, the angel seemed about to fly away. Which way now, said Jack. 2 paths led away from the angel fountain, one to the right and one to the left. I don't know, said Annie. Pick one. Jack headed to the left. Annie followed. They passed a frozen lake and walked over an arched bridge. Jack kept his eyes on the ground and walked and walked and walked. Every time he lifted his head, the snow felt like needles against his skin. Jack tried to keep walking in a straight line, but the paths they were following began twisting and turning like a maze. Different paths branched off, curving this way and that. Jack remembered information from the research book. The park has 32 miles of winding footpaths. We got to get out of this park, Jack shouted to Annie, or we'll be lost in Central Park forever. Annie didn't answer. Annie, Jack shielded his eyes against the cutting wind and looked back. He didn't see her. Jack turned around and around looking for Annie, but he couldn't see anything. The world was completely white. Annie! Annie! He cried. Had she gone off on a different path? Was she lost? Annie! She could wander around in the storm for hours, Jack thought. She could freeze to death. I have to find her. Jack tried to calm down. He took a few breaths. A rhyme, he thought. He couldn't remember which magic rhymes were left. He struggled to unbuckle his briefcase. His fingers felt frozen as he pulled out the book and hunched over it, trying to shelter it from the storm. He wiped off his glasses and read. Turn into dust. That wouldn't help. Pull clouds from the sky. That would only make things worse. Find a treasure you must never lose. Is Annie a treasure? Jack wondered. He'd always thought of a treasure as something super valuable like gold or silver or rare jewels, but right now Annie seemed like the most valued thing in the world. Jack found the rhyme and shouted, treasure forever must never be lost. Umada call, Umada bast. Jack whirled around. Annie was standing right behind him. There you are, she said. I was afraid you were lost. I wasn't lost, Jack. You were lost. He slipped the rhyme book back into his briefcase. Not me. You, said Annie. Whatever, said Jack. Just stay near me now. He took her hand and gripped it tightly. Okay, let's figure out what to do. Wait, is that castle over there, said Annie. What? Said Jack. A castle. Look. Peering through the storm, Jack saw a small castle sitting on top of a snowy hill. A light burned in the window. A castle in Central Park, said Jack. That's weird. Let's go see if anyone's inside, said Annie. Maybe they can help us. People in the castle might know about unicorns, or at least know how to get out of the park, said Jack. Jack and Annie struggled up the steps that led to the castle. At the top of the steps, Jack glanced back at the park. He could barely make out 2 figures in the snow, one in a dark cape and one in a raincoat. It's them, said Jack. A cloud of wind-driven snow blew over the couple. Jack kept looking, eager for another glimpse of the two young enchanters, but the snow hid everything in sight. "They'll find us," said Annie. "Come on." She pushed open the door to the castle and led the way inside. The door slammed shut behind them. Jack and Annie stood in a dimly lit hallway. "Hello! Who's there?" a man called. Jack and Annie, shouted Annie. A tall, thin man came down a curving stone stairway. He wore an old-fashioned blue-striped suit. "Goodness, 2 children," he said. "What are you doing on a day like today?" "We got lost in the park," said Jack. "My name is Jack, and this is my sister Annie." "Pleased to meet you. I'm Bill Perkins," said the man. "Welcome to Belvenere Castle." "What is this place?" asked Annie. "It's a castle built in 1869, said Mr. Perkins. "It was made to be a delightful surprise when one wandered the park. Today it's a delightful surprise for a nature preserve, observatory, and weather instruments inside." "Weather instruments?" said Jack. "Yes, we've come from the U.S. Weather Bureau to check them out," said Mr. Perkins. "I'm afraid right now our data is telling us that the weather's undergoing a rapid and terrible change." Jack shivered in his damp clothes. "Our data is telling us the same thing," he said. "A storm has blown in from the Midwest, bringing wind and snow," said Mr. Perkins. "But after nightfall, things will get worse. Another storm is coming up from the south, gathering speed on its way." "That sounds serious," said Annie. "It's worth saying serious," said Mr. Perkins. "It's disastrous. After dark, the two systems will meet and create a monster blizzard. It could be the worst in New York history, even worse than the blizzard in '88. Jack caught his breath. "Poor New York City," said Annie. "Ah, yes, it's the last thing our great city needs during these hard times," said Mr. Perkins, shaking his head. "Excuse me, but I have a question," said Annie. "Do you know if there's a full moon tonight?" "Well, yes, there is," said Bill Perkins, "but you won't see it not through those storm clouds. Actually, it's the second moon in the month." "A blue moon," said Annie. "You're exactly right. A blue moon indeed," said Mr. Perkins. "I have another question," said Annie. "Do you know if we can find any unusual animals," Jack interrupted, "on public display somewhere in New York City?" "Well, your best bet is the Bronx Zoo," said Mr. Perkins. They display all kinds of animals from all over the world." "Great," said Annie. "How do we get there?" "What, you can't go to the zoo today," said Mr. Perkins. "Not in this storm." No, of course not," Jack said quickly. "But if we ever decide to go to the zoo in the future, how would we get there?" "Well, your best bet would be to take the West Side IRT," said Mr. Perkins. "What's that?" said Jack. "A subway line that runs up the west side," said Mr. Perkins. "The number 2 train will take you on that line, will take you to the Bronx Zoo." "Oh, great. Thanks for everything," said Jack. "We'd better get going." He and Annie started toward the door. "Wait, there's a telephone upstairs. Let me ring up your parents. Perhaps they can come and get you," said Mr. Perkins. Well," said Annie, we haven't lived here very long, and we don't have a telephone yet." "She's right," said Jack, "but it's not far to where we live. We just need to get out of the park." "To the west side," said Annie. Yeah, the west side," said Jack. "Can you tell us how to get there from here?" "Certainly," said Mr. Perkins. Mr. Perkins opened the door. Wind and snow blasted inside as he pointed to the right. "Cross the terrace and then walk down the stairs to a path. That path will take you out of the park to 81st Street, he said. "Hurry home now." "We will," said Jack. "Thanks a lot, Mr. Perkins," said Annie. Then she and Jack headed back out into the blizzard. Chapter 4. Hard Times. The wind lashed the bare trees and swept the snow into tall drifts. That way, said Annie. She led the way down the castle steps to the path. Mr. Perkins was a nice guy, said Annie, as they headed toward the west side of the park. Yeah, said Jack. Someday I'd like to go back there and see all his weather instruments. Jack and Annie trudged through the storm until they saw buildings just beyond the trees. We're almost just out of Central Park, said Annie. Jack looked around. Do you see Teddy and Kathleen? He said. No, but we'd better keep going if we want to get to the Bronx Zoo today, said Annie. Jack agreed. Mr. Perkins had said that the blizzard was going to be a monster blizzard after dark, and dark came early in November. They left the park and came to the wide street. All sorts of kind of things was blowing around in the wind. Newspapers, hats, and umbrellas turned upside down. Jack and Annie grabbed a lamppost and clung to it, trying to keep from getting blown away, too. When there was a lot in the storm, they trudged across the avenue. It was lined with cars half buried in snow. Jack and Annie started down a side street. They passed an old man and a woman huddled in a doorway. Blankets, wrapped in torn blankets, burning a fire in a small stove. They passed a line of men dressed in ragged clothes, standing outside a building that had a sign that said "Free Soup." Jack hoped everyone outside would get better shelter before the monster blizzard hit. Excuse me, Annie called to the men in line for free soup. Do you know how to get to the West Side IRT subway? Is 2 blocks, said a man. Keep going. Thanks, said Annie. Jack and Annie kept going. They passed a firehouse, a cheese store, and a newsstand. Everything was closed, and the shuttered peddlers' carts were stuck in drifts. Signs banged on windows. One said, "Meatballs and beans, 10 cents. Another said, "Zito's Bakery, 5 cents a loaf." A third said, "Lodging, $2 a week." Jack and Annie crossed the street. They saw newsboys huddled under a theater awning. The boys were wrapped their feet and legs in newspapers to keep warm. Excuse me, where's the subways? Jack shouted. End of the block and around the corner. Green ball, said the boy. Green ball, wondered Jack. What does that mean? Thanks, Annie. You guys should go home after dark. The storm's turning into a monster. Jack and Annie trudged on. When they turned the corner, Annie shouted, Look, a green ball! On top of a post was a large green ball. The post was next to a stairway that led underground. A sign said, Uptown IRT trains. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Mr. Perkins said we should take the number 2 today. Wait, do you see Teddy and Kathleen? Said Jack, peering through the snow. Annie looked with them down the city street. I don't see them, but I'm sure they'll find us, said Annie. She and Jack turned down the stairs that led underground. The stairway was filled with people trying to get out of the storm. Jack and Annie kept walking with the crowd into the subway station. A long line waited in front of the turnstile. A sign over the turnstile said, Subway, 5 cents. Oops, did you bring any money for the subway? Annie asked Jack. Yeah, I think I left home with at least $1 in change. Cool, said Annie. She led the way to the line. As they waited, Jack looked around the station. A banjo played a silly tune, but no one smiled. A man in rags walked around holding out a hat, begging for money. Jack took a nickel from his pocket and dropped it into the hat. Thank you, bless you, the beggar said. Sure, said Jack. As the beggar went on, Jack looked at Annie. Boy, just a little nickel made him so happy, he said. I know everyone seems so poor and desperate here, said Annie. I wonder why, said Jack. While the line moved slowly toward the turnstile, he pulled out the research book and read aloud from the introduction. In 1930s, New York City, as well as the rest of the United States, suffered through hard times known as the Great Depression. Jobs were scarce and many people did not have money or homes. That's what Mr. Perkins was talking about, said Jack. Hard times. I wish we could help everybody, said Annie. Me too, said Jack. But right now we have a mission to save a unicorn under spell, said Annie. Right, Jack frowned. Our mission sounds like a fairy tale from a make-believe world, he said. Not the real world of the Great Depression. I know, said Annie. Hey, it's almost our turn. What do we do? Let's watch the person in front of us, said Jack. Jack and Annie watched an old woman put a nickel into a slot of the turnstile which led to the train platform. The woman pushed through and joined the crowd of people waiting for the train. Jack and Annie put their nickels in the slot and pushed through too. The platform was bitterly cold. People looked worried as if they feared the subway train might never come. Jack felt worried too, but mainly because the mission wasn't making sense. They were trying to get to a zoo before the blue moon and before a monster blizzard hit the city. But when they got to the zoo, what then? This is what I don't understand, Jack said to Annie. The poem says the unicorn is on public display, but if that's true, we haven't ever heard anything about New York City once having a unicorn in the zoo. That would be major news. Yeah, but remember the poem says hidden well and he's under a spell, said Annie. So maybe the spell's making him look like a regular animal, but when we get to the zoo and say his name, he'll come out of hiding and reveal his true nature, said Jack. Exactly, said Annie. Okay, said Jack. But how will we know what kind of animal to look for? A signal bell clanged. Lights appeared at the end of the tunnel. Jack and Annie moved with the crowd as it surged forward. The subway train rumbled down the tracks. On the side of the train, Jack saw a big number 2. That's us, he said. When the train stopped, everyone on the platform clammed inside. Jack and Annie were squashed into one of the first cars. All the seats were taken, so they had to stand on the aisle. They held on to a silver pole as more riders squeezed into the subway, the car, and grabbed straps hanging over the head. Jack actually didn't mind the tight squeeze. He was anxious to get out of the cold. Look, Jack, cried Annie. She pointed out the window of the subway car. Jack peered out the window just in time to see 2 people rush onto the platform toward one of the rear cars. One dressed in a dark cape and one in a raincoat. A bell sounded. The subway doors closed and the train started down the tracks. Yay, we're on the train! Wait, yay, they're on the train! Exclaimed Annie. Cool, said Jack, grinning. When we'll get off, we'll see them when we get off. Hey, where do we get off? Said Annie. Oh man, I forgot to ask, said Jack. He turned to the lady next to him. Excuse me, how do we get off for the Bronx Zoo? He asked her. Tremont Avenue, the woman said gruffly. Where's that? Asked Annie. There's a map, said the woman. She pointed to a map on the wall above the row of seats passengers. Jack and Annie stared at the colorful lines that showed the subway systems. Nothing here makes sense, said Jack. Do you need help? The girl said, sitting under the map. She wore a tattered purple shawl over her shoulders. She wore a tattered purple shawl over her head and shoulders. Yes, please, said Annie. Can you tell us where we get off to the Bronx Zoo? It's much farther north, said the girl. I will tell you when to get off. Thanks, said Jack. The train bumped and creaked along, stopping every a couple of minutes. Jack looked out the window and tried to read the names of each station, but some of the platforms were too crowded. He was glad the girl in the shawl promised to help them. When Jack was starting to feel warm and a little drowsy, the girl called out, "Your stop's next." "Thanks a lot," said Annie. She and Jack squeezed through the crowd toward the doors. When the train stopped and the doors opened, Jack and Annie were practically pushed onto the platform with the others people leaving. The subway doors closed and the train moved on. Chapter 5, The Cloisters. "You see Teddy and Kathleen?" asked Jack. The crowd was forming away from the subway platform toward the different exits. Jack couldn't see anyone who looked like the two young enchanters. "No," said Annie, "but if we figure out where to get off, I'm sure they did too. Let's hurry and get to the zoo. We can meet them there." Jack and Annie moved with the crowd. They passed the change booth on the way out of the station. "Wait, I'll ask where to go," said Annie. She waited in line and then leaned forward to talk with the man in the booth. "Do you know how to walk to the Bronx Zoo from here?" she said. "Walk to the Bronx Zoo? Are you out of your mind?" said the man. "This isn't the stop for the Bronx Zoo. It's much farther north." "You mean we got off at the wrong stop?" said Annie. "You did, but it doesn't matter," said the man. "You can't get there now anyway. The tracks near the zoo are above ground, and I just got word that they're buried in snow." "Oh no," said Jack. "Lazy day for the zoo anyway," said the man. "Next!" Jack and Annie stepped away from the booth and walked out of the subway station. The sidewalk was deserted. "Oh man, that girl gave us the wrong information," said Jack. "That is terrible," said Annie. "No kidding," said Jack. He looked around, wondering what to do next. "Auga! Auga! Auga!" "What's that?" said Jack. "It looks like a taxi," said Annie. She pointed to a big yellow car with a checkboard striped and writing on the side. Its horn let out a loud squawk. "Auga! Auga!" The driver stuck his head out of the window. He wore a big furry cap that came down over his ears. "Need a taxi?" he called. "Yes," shouted Annie. "Come on, Jack. He can take us to the zoo." Jack hurried after her through the snow. The taxi driver stepped out of the cab and opened the back door. "Hop on," he said. His cheerful voice was muffled through a plaid scarf that covered half of his face. "Thanks," said Jack. He stepped onto the running board and then climbed on side. The taxi was very roomy. Jack could stretch out his legs and not even touch the front seat. "Boy, lots more room in old cars than ours," he said to Annie. "Yeah," said Annie. "And there's no seat belts." "Oh, yeah," said Jack. "I guess old cars didn't have seat belts. I hope this guy's a good driver." The driver slid open the window that separated the front seat from the back. "What-ho?" he asked. "Can you please take us to the Bronx Zoo?" said Annie. "We're in a big hurry," said Jack. "Sure thing, kiddos," said the driver. "Great," said Jack. "Oh, how much will we cost?" asked Annie. 13 cents, said the driver. "Can you afford it?" "Sure thing, kiddo," said Annie. The driver laughed and closed the window. Then the taxi began moving through the snow. "Everything's so cheap here," Annie said to Jack. "To us it is," said Jack, "but it's the Great Depression. Lots of people don't even have a nickel." The taxi slid over the icy road and bumped over the curb. "Whoa," said Jack, slipping off his seat. "Sorry, kiddos," said the driver. He got the taxi back on the street. Then he plowed on through the snow, swerving this way and that. The ride seemed dangerous in the bad weather, but Jack didn't want to get out now. He stared nervously out the window. The streets were empty of people. All the stores were closed and shuttered. Now snow was piling up on apartments, stoops, fire escapes, and iron balconies. Many of the buildings were shabby and crumbling with broken windows. Hard times, Annie said softly. Yep, said Jack. He took a deep breath. The taxi climbed up a road lined with a tall evergreen tree. Suddenly, the taxi skidded to a stop. The engine roared, but the wheels only spun in the snow. What happened? Jack wondered aloud. He tapped on the glass and that separated the driver from the driver. Slid open the window. Too bad, kiddos. Looks like I'm stuck, he said. Are we near the Bronx Zoo? Asked Annie. It's still a long ways to go from here. I'm sorry to say, said the driver. But this taxi's not going anywhere. I don't know what else to tell you. Oh, well, thanks, Annie. How much did we cost you? Forget it, kiddo, said the driver. Good luck. Good luck yourself, kiddo, said Annie. She opened the door, and she and Jack climbed out into the cold wind. The taxi motor kept running, but the wheels only spun in the snow, sending sprays of dirt and snow. I don't believe this, said Jack. Maybe there's another subway near here, said Annie. The man in the booth said the subways are running all the way to the zoo, said Jack. I know, but maybe we could at least get closer, said Annie. Jack and Annie trudged through the storm until they came to a steep cliff. Over the edge of the cliff, they saw nothing but a cloud of wind-blown snow. Where are we? Said Annie. I have no idea, said Jack. His teeth chattered, his eyes and ears stung with the cold, and his hands, feet, and arms felt numb. Isn't this what frostbite feels like? He thought. Numb? Let's go back and sit in that taxi and we'll figure things out, said Jack. At least we can get out of the storm. Okay, said Annie, but maybe the driver will get unstuck again. Jack and Annie headed back the way they'd come, but the taxi was gone. He must have gotten stuck, said Annie. And he left us. Oh man, said Jack. We're having really rotten luck. And I think I'm starting to get frostbite. Seriously. It looks like there's a building over there, said Annie. I see a tower. Yeah, me too, said Jack. Let's go there and try to figure out what to do next. Jack and Annie trekked up what looked like a long driveway until they came to the gray stone building. Jack wiped snow from a sign in front. Cloisters of the Metropolitan Museum open to the public. Museum, said Annie. Let's go in and ask them how to get to the zoo. Yeah, and warm up for a minute, said Jack. He and Annie climbed the snow-covered steps of the cloisters. Annie opened the door and the wind nearly swept them inside. They pushed the door shut behind them. My first visitor's a day, a woman chirped. Jack and Annie turned around. A museum lady sat in a desk dressed in a green uniform. She was tall and thin with a friendly face and a short gray hair. I'm sorry we can't stay long, said Annie. We just came to get warm here for a minute and get some information. What can I tell you? The woman asked. We're trying to get to the Bronx Zoo, said Jack. Is there a subway near here? Well, there's a train close by, said the museum lady. But that won't take you anywhere. Oh, darn, said Annie. Oh, I wouldn't feel so sad, said the woman brightly. If I were you, I'd stay right here and enjoy the cloisters. You won't regret it, I promise. The cloisters held most of the medieval collection of the world-famous Metropolitan Museum of Art. What's a cloister? Asked Annie. It's an enclosed garden or courtyard, said the museum lady. We have 4 in all. They beautiful, evoke medieval times from the Romanesque period of the light the airy delicance of the Gothic. Cool, said Jack politely. He had no idea what she was talking about. I suppose the gardens are cool most days, my dear, said the woman, but today they're freezing. Never mind, you don't have to spend time in the gardens to enjoy the museum. Inside we have beautiful exhibits. The tapestries are especially lovely. They were woven with beautiful yarns by weavers from the Netherlands. For years they hung in a French castle and managed to escape destruction during the Revolution. And then, for 2 generations, excuse me, said Jack. He was eager to end the woman's boring lecture so they could be on their way. But she kept talking sadly. The tapestries were used to peasants to protect potatoes stored in their barns until eventually a countess rescued them. They were restored in 1922 when Mr. John D. Rockefeller brought them just last year. Mr. Rockefeller gave his gifts to... Oh, that's so cool, Jack interrupted loudly. He pretended to be interested so they could be on their way. We'd love to see them. Where are they? The tapestry rooms is just on the other side of the first cloister, said the woman, pointing. Turn that corner, go out the door, and then walk through the garden to the door of the tapestry room. Let's go, said Annie. Quick, said Jack. He and Annie went around the corner, out the door, and into the snowy garden. Woo, said Jack. I didn't want to be rude, but we're short on time. I know, said Annie. What now, said Jack, shivering in the cold. We need to figure out exactly where we are, said Annie. And where is the Bronx Zoo? Maybe we can just walk there from here. Come on, let's get inside the tapestry room and check out the research book for maps, said Jack. He walked along the edge of the garden under a covered walkway. When they came to a door, Jack pushed it open, and he and Annie slipped out of the cold and into a large warm room. Jack closed the door against the storm and unbuckled his briefcase to take out the research book. Oh, wow, breathed Annie. What, said Jack. He looked up. The walls of the room were covered with cloth hangings. Tapestry shimmered on the gold silver floor. Oh, whispered Jack. A unicorn, said Annie. Chapter 6. The Hunt of the Unicorn. There were 7 tapestries in all. Each was almost as high as the wooden ceiling. Jack read aloud from a sign on the wall under the first one. The Hunt of the Unicorn tapestries woven in the Netherlands at the end of the 1400s. The first tapestry showed the hunters and hounds searching for a unicorn. The second showed the unicorn being found. The other tapestries showed the unicorn trying to escape, leaping from a stream, chased by hounds, then captured and slain by the hunter's spears. Oddly, the last tapestry showed the unicorn alive again. He was sitting in the garden of flowers, surrounded by a wooden fence. There was a wide blue collar around his neck and was chained to a tree. That's him, Annie said softly. How can it be him, said Jack. He's a picture in the tapestry. Annie read the poem again. Jack, read Merlin's poem again, said Annie. Jack unbuckled his briefcase and pulled out the parchment scroll. He read aloud. The very last unicorn is now hidden well by those who have put him under a spell. The unicorn is hidden in the tapestry, said Annie. The people who wove it must be the ones who put him under a spell. Said Jack. He read on. 4 centuries, 4 decades from that afternoon before November, before the blue moon. Stop, do the math, said Annie. Right, said Jack. He took out his notebook and pencil. Okay, 4 centuries is 400 and 4 decades is 40. Add them up, you get 440. Then you subtract 440 from 1938, you get 1498. It works, said Annie. The sign says the tapestries were woven at the end of the 1400s, and it's November. At the end of November, and Mr. Perkins said there's a blue moon tonight. Oh man, whispered Jack. He kept reading. He will wake once more and be free to go home if you call it his name, Divine Flower of Rome. And he looked up at the tapestry. Divine Flower, she called. Nothing happened. Divine Flower of Rome, Jack called. Jack and Annie watched and waited. Nothing changed in the tapestry. It looked exactly the same. Maybe he's not the right unicorn after all, said Jack. Maybe it's just not the right name, said Annie. Read the rest. Jack read more of the poem. You must coax them to stand with his name is spoken. His chain will break and the spell to be broken. Here's the right unicorn, said Annie. See, there's a chain. She pointed to the chain in the tapestry. Yeah, but why is calling his name not working? Said Jack. He didn't wake up. I don't know, said Annie. What else does the poem say? Jack read on. A young girl must love him and show him the way, lest he be trapped forever on public display. If he loses this chance to rise and depart, all magic will fade from his horn and his heart. He is on public display, and I'm the girl, said Annie. I love him a lot. I'll show him the way. Okay, calm down, said Jack. First, we need to wake him up, said Jack. Voices came from outside. Jack moved to a window and looked out into the courtyard. Two people were coming through the cloisters. The people were coming from the cloisters, their heads down against the flying snow. They wore a dark cape and the other a tan raincoat. Jack turned to Annie, a big grin on his face. You were right, he said. They found us. Teddy and Kathleen are here, he said. They'll know how to undo the spell. Of course, said Annie, beaming. Quick, let's hide and surprise them for a change. And there's Sir Jack. He and Annie hurried into a long room of the tapestry room. They heard the door up from the cloisters open. They followed a rush of cool air. They heard footsteps. Jack and Annie grinned at each other. Jack put fingers to his lips. Then a quick, nervous voice came from the tapestry. Glinda, they're not here. I see that. Bala, but look. Is it him, Glinda? Annie grabbed Jack's arm. Bala? Glinda? She whispered. Shh, whispered Jack. Of course it's him, said the girl. I told you the Frog Creek brats would lay us to him. Get the rope ready. Aye, said the boy. Jack and Annie carefully peeked around the corner. They saw a girl and a boy standing with their backs to them, facing the unicorn in the last tapestry. The boy held a thick black rope. Call his name, Glinda, said the boy. The girl took a step toward the tapestry. She raised her arms in front of the unicorn. Dianthus, she called. Wind whistled through the open doorway. The flowers in the tapestry swayed as if the wind was blowing them. The scent of roses wafted through the room. The unicorn moved his head. Oh, whispered Annie. Get ready, Bala, to take him back to the master, said the girl. Annie clutched Jack's arm. Who's the master, said Annie. I don't know, whispered Jack. But I don't think he's a good guy. The girl turned back to the tapestry and spoke softly to the unicorn. Come, my lovely Dianthus, stand up. Come out of that old rug. The unicorn turned his head and looked at the girl. They looked in the blue eyes was ancient yet young, wise yet innocent. He lifted his head as if he were about to stand. The girl nodded to the boy. The boy slowly coiled the back rope and loose. The girl looked at the unicorn again. Come to me, Dianthus, she coaxed. Don't be afraid. I'll love you and show you the way. No, Dianthus, yelled Annie. Don't go to her. Annie and Jack bolted from their hiding place. Bella and Glinda whirled around with surprise. They both had pale faces and pale shining eyes. Leave him alone, Annie yelled at the strange pair. You don't love him, we love him. At that moment, there was a flash of light, and the unicorn in the tapestry leaped like a deer over the woven fence. Bella and Glinda shrieked and jumped back. Jack covered his head. Then there was silence. Jack looked up. The tapestry in the wall was unchanged, but it still showed the unicorn woven from yarn chained to a tree. But standing on the floor of the museum was the most beautiful creature Jack had ever seen. Chapter 7, Dianthus. The unicorn had a broad milk-white chest and graceful neck. A tuft of hair curled under his chin. A long spiraled horn rose from the middle of his forehead. He stood very still and very tall. His whole body seemed to be glowing. Bella and Glinda just stared at him. They both looked frightened, but Annie stepped forward. Hi, Dianthus, she whispered. She reached out and gently touched the unicorn's white chest. Feel, Jack, feel his heart pounding. Move away, ordered Grinda. The girls stepped between Jack and Annie. He is ours and he's coming with us. He's not yours, said Annie. Who are you anyway, said Jack. Where did you come from? Grinda glared at Jack. We come from the magic world he comes from, he said. He belongs to us, not you. Bella! The boy shoved Jack and Annie aside and tried to loop the black rope around the unicorn's neck, but the Dianthus reared up and wheeled around, forcing Balor and Green out of his way. Dianthus leaped across the tapestry room toward the garden. Jack and Annie followed him through the open doorways into his snowy cloisters. Balor and Grinda charged after them. They pushed past Jack and Annie to the Dianthus. Balor grabbed the unicorn's blue collar. You are coming with us, stupid, like it or not. Don't pull on him, yelled Annie, and don't call him stupid. Dianthus tried to back up. Let go, screamed Annie. He doesn't want to go with you. He has no choice, said Grinda. As soon as the rope goes around his neck, all three of us will be instantly transported back to the Dark Wizard. No, Jack shouted. He charged at Balor and tried to grab the rope from his hands. Balor let go of the unicorn's collar and shoved Jack into the snow. Then he turned back to the unicorn and began to swing the magic rope like a lasso. Dianthus reared up again and kicked his legs. Breath from his nostrils billowed into the icy air. A rhyme, Jack, yelled Annie. A rhyme! Kneeling in the snow, Jack yanked out the book from his briefcase. He frantically turned the pages looking for a rhyme they hadn't used. Call a cloud from the sky, he shouted to Annie. Annie! Thing, she called. Try it! Jack read the rhyme aloud. Down from high, out of the sky, Eno fame, Eno rye. A thick white fog instantly filled the cloisters. The fog was so dense that Jack couldn't even see his own hand. Bella, where are you? Shrieked Grinda. Here, the boy yelled. Someone grabbed Jack. He struggled to break free. Let me go, he shouted. It's me, whispered Annie. Come on. Jack stood up, clinging to Annie. They stumbled together through the garden, feeling their way along the walkway. They came to the door that led to the main hall. Dianthus, here, whispered Annie. Jack heard the soft crunch of the unicorn's hooves over the frozen snow. Where did he go? Shouted Balor. Find him, yelled Grinda. Jack reached out and felt the unicorn's soft mane. Annie pushed open the door. Then Dianthus, and Jack slipped into the main hall. Jack closed the door before Balor and Grinda could escape the garden. There wasn't a wisp of fog in the main hall. The museum lady was still at her desk. She stared at Jack, Annie, and the glowing unicorn that had just come in from the garden. Her mouth opened and then closed. Dianthus stepped lightly over the wooden floor. Jack and Annie followed him. The museum lady never blinked as Dianthus walked gracefully past her desk. She reached out and touched him. She gasped and quickly drew her hand back. Thanks for keeping the museum open today, said Annie, and thank Mr. Rockefeller for his gifts. The museum lady opened and closed her mouth still, but she couldn't speak. Jack opened the door that led to the street. Jack and Annie followed Dianthus out of the museum and down the stone steps. The blizzard had gotten much worse. Snow was coming down harder than ever. The wind was wailing. The unicorn shook his head and knelt down. He wants us to get on, said Annie. Quick, climb on behind me. Annie climbed onto the unicorn's back. Jack climbed on behind her. Dianthus stood up to his full height. Balor and Grinda burst out of the doors to the museum. Stop! Screamed Grinda. Dianthus looked back at them. Then he leaped nimbly over a snowdrift and headed out into the darkening storm. Chapter 8. Back to life. Jack clung to Annie. Dianthus cleared the driveway of the cloisters and began to run with ease down the street. His long strides were so light and graceful, Jack could hardly feel the movement. As the unicorn ran, he held his head high. His long spiraled horn pierced the raging storm, seeming to calm the winds and snow. Jack realized he could feel his fingers and toes now. His whole body began to feel warm. Dianthus headed down the deserted parkway along the waterfront past an empty bridge. The bridges, towers, and cables formed a silver arc over a wide river. White caps swept across the water's surface. The unicorn trotted past the river, and water became still. Dianthus left the riverside and headed down a city street. The wind whistled between the tall buildings, blowing the snow into great drifts, but the unicorn's horns turned the howling wind into a soft breeze. The wild blowing wind became floating star-shaped flakes, like the snowflakes on Christmas cards. As the unicorn trotted down the street, snowbound taxis and streetcars started moving again. Light came on in cafes and jazz clubs. Jack heard happy music coming from outside. With a calm, steady trot, the unicorn pranced down the city. As they moved past an old mansion, broken down tenements, and shabby hotels, people peeked out of their doorways and windows to see why the sounds of the storm had died away. When they caught sight of Dianthus with his horn shining in the windless air, they broke into joyful smiles. Church bells began ringing through the white silence. Finally, Dianthus came to a stone wall bordering Central Park. He jumped over the wall and landed knee-deep into a heap of snow. The unicorn leapt effortlessly out of the drift and cantered over a field and down a slope. Slowly the clouds parted and light from the setting sun poured down. "Hot corn!" a peddler shouted, plowing his pushcart through the snow. "Roasted chestnuts!" shouted another. The good smells of the corn and nuts filled the crisp golden air of the park. The unicorn trotted past Belvedere Castle. Bill Perkins stood outside staring up at the clear blue sky. "Hey, Mr. Perkins, the monster storm's not coming," shouted Danny. The weatherman saw Jack Nanny on the back of the unicorn. His jaw dropped, then he smiled and waved. Jack Nanny rode on. When they passed the statue of the winged angel, Jack thought he saw her great wings move. "Did you see that?" he cried. "Yes, Nanny." When they passed the statue of Balto, Jack heard the sled dog bark. When they rode past the merry-go-round, Jack heard a chorus of neighs and whinnies accompanied by lively music. Dianthus pranced down a shimmering pathway. He leaped over a stone wall and cantered over another field. The unicorn's horn glistened in the snowy field, reflecting gold and copper light. Not until the unicorn came to the treehouse that in the tree did he stop. Annie hugged the unicorn's long, graceful neck. Thank you, she whispered and kissed him. "Oh, wow," breathed Jack. Annie looked at Jack over her shoulder. "What now?" she asked. "I guess we climb off," said Jack. "But then what?" asked Annie sadly. "Where does he go?" "That's a good question," said Jack. "He comes with us, of course," someone said. Jack Nanny gasped. Ballard and Glinda slunk out from behind the tree. Ballard carried a black rope. Jack was stunned. How did you get here so fast?" he asked. "We took the A train," said Ballard. "'Tis actually faster than riding a unicorn." The boy laughed meanly. "Shut up, Ballard," said Glinda. Then she turned to Jack Nanny. "I am glad you have a happy little ride, but you can say bye to Dianthus now. We will take him from here." "No, you won't," said Annie. "Stay away from us," said Jack. "Come on, Dianthus," said Annie. "Let's go," said Annie. Before Dianthus could move, Glinda rushed forward and grabbed the collar with both hands. The unicorn snorted and shook her head. Glinda clung fiercely to the collar. "Get the rope around his head, Ballard," she yelled. "Now!" Ballard looped the black rope into a noose again. The unicorn twisted and turned his head. Jack kicked at Ballard. "Stop!" he yelled. "Get away from us!" Jack felt stupid just yelling and kicking, but he didn't know what else to do. As Ballard and Glinda struggled to get the noose around the unicorn's head, Annie pointed at them. In a loud voice, she shouted, "Fowl of air, appear now here! Aka, 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 mere!" The black rope fell down into the snow. Ballard and Glinda started to spin around. They spun like two spinning tops. As they spun, they grew smaller and smaller. Jack saw a blur of colors, gray and brown, green and white, a dash of orange and a dash of yellow. The spinning slowly came to a stop. The two scary teenagers were gone. In their place stood two small mallard ducks. Chapter 9. It's them! One duck was gray with black and white markings. The other had a glassy green head and a rusty-colored chest. Both had orange webbed feet and long yellow bills. Quack, quack, they said. Annie looked over at Jack. I memorized the duck rhyme a while ago, she said, with a grin. I knew it would come handy someday. Jack laughed. Good work, he said. The two ducks waddled around on their bright orange feet, quacking. Answering cries came from overhead. A flock of ducks was flying through the clear November sky. Go on, Bella and Glinda, Annie shouted to the two mallards. Go to them now. The mallards quacked at Annie. Go on, Jack chimed in. Fly south for the winter. You'll have fun, we promise. The two mallards quacked and flapped their wings. First one and then the other rose off the ground. They flew high into the sky. Jack held his breath as he watched the mallards soar away, flying south over New York City. Annie put her arms around the unicorn's neck. Then she rested her head on his silky white mane. You're safe now, she said, but you have to leave us. I have to show you the way home to Camelot. The problem is, I don't know how to do that. Ooga! Ooga! Jack looked over at the avenue on that bordered the park. A big yellow taxi was parked by the curb. The driver was honking his horn. Ooga! Ooga! He waved through the window. That's the guy. What's the guy want? Said Annie, sitting up. I don't know, said Jack. The driver jumped out of the car. He wore a cap and a plaid scarf. Hey, it's the guy who deserted us outside the cloister, said Annie. The passenger door opened in a taxi. In the taxi, and the girl stepped out. She was wearing a purple shawl. And that's the girl who told us to get off at the wrong stop, said Jack. The taxi driver and the girl in the shawl both waved at Jack and Annie. Then the driver lifted his cap and pulled down his scarf. Then he had a red curly hair and a wonderful familiar grin. The girl pulled down her shawl off her head. Beautiful long black curls fell down to her waist. It's them, said Jack. Teddy! Kathleen! Annie shouted. Jack and Annie slid off the unicorn's back to the snow. The two young enchanters ran across the snow to them. Annie threw her arms around Teddy and Kathleen. The four of them laughed and talked at the same time. That was you! That was you! That was us! I'm sorry I told you to get off at the wrong stop, said Kathleen. But I knew Teddy was there. I'm sorry I let you stand it in the storm, said Teddy. But I knew you would find your way to the cloisters. We thought you guys were those two kids following us, Bella and Glinda, said Annie. Yes, we just saw you turn them into ducks, said Kathleen. Brilliant. Who are they? Asked Jack. Apprentices to the Dark Wizard, said Kathleen. We didn't know they were following you. Even Merlin didn't know. They were pretty creepy, said Jack. Yeah, but they actually helped us without meaning to, said Annie. They knew the unicorn's name. We thought it was Divine Flower of Rome, said Jack. I told Merlin that clue might be a bit difficult, said Teddy. Divine Flower is Dianthus in Latin, the language of old Rome. So do Glinda and Bella know Latin? Asked Annie. Hardly, said Teddy. The unicorn's name is famous throughout the other world. He is known for his great magic. And for his goodness, added Kathleen. We know about his goodness, said Annie. When he ran through the streets with his horn in the air, the blizzard ended, and everyone we passed cheered up and seemed to get more hopeful. The Dark Wizard was trying to capture Dianthus to keep the magic from the rest of the world, said Kathleen. Merlin will be very pleased that you have foiled the wizard's plan. In truth, I believe he would like to thank you himself, said Teddy. He turned to the yellow taxi parked by the curb. The back door of the car opened and two grown-ups stepped out. A tall, elegant woman wearing a wine-colored cloak and a man in a dark blue robe. The man had long white beard. The woman had long white hair. Morgan, Merlin, whispered Jack. As the wizard and the magic librarian of Camelot walked across the snow, Diantha stepped forward to greet them. He bowed his head, and Merlin tenderly stroked the unicorn's neck. Morgan Le Fay turned to Jack and Annie. Hello, she said, smiling. It is good to see you both. Her lovely voice washed over Jack like music. You too, said Annie, hugging the enchantress. What are you and Merlin doing here, said Jack. I have always wanted to visit New York City, said Merlin. Teddy has just given us a quiet ride in that taxi. Merlin had to tell him to slow down several times. Morgan laughed and turned to Merlin. Yes, quite a ride indeed, said Merlin. Greetings to you both, Jack and Annie. Greetings, they said. Thank you for saving my beloved Diantha, said Merlin. Long ago he was stolen from Camelot by evildoers. He was rescued by magic weavers in the Netherlands. To keep him safe, they used their art to hide them in the tapestries. I knew I could entrust the two of you two to set him free on the day the spell would end. But your mission turned out to be more dangerous than I intended. I did not know the Dark Wizard had sent his apprentices to follow you and capture the unicorn. Poor Glinda and Bowser, said Annie. Now they're ducks. Oh, do not worry, said Teddy. The spell will wear off in a few days and they'll find their way home. Yes, said Kathleen. And I am sure the Dark Wizard will have another wicked plan for them. Aye, said Merlin. But they will no longer have the use of their black rope. He picked up the rope from the ground and handed it to Teddy. Take this back to Camelot and see that it is destroyed. Gladly, said Teddy. It must be terrible to work for the Dark Wizard, said Annie. She looked at Merlin. I'm glad we work for you instead, Merlin smiled. And so am I, he said. On the last 4 missions, you and Jack have proved that you know how to use magic wisely. For that, I now trust you with one of the Camelot's greatest treasures. Merlin pulled a spiral wand from his robe, and I give you the wand of Dianthus, he said. As you can see, the wand is made in the shape of the unicorn's horn. It has a bit of its magic in it. Merlin held the silver wand out to Jack and Annie. Jack took the wand from Merlin. It burned in his hands. With cold or warmth, he couldn't tell which. With the help of the wand, you can make your own magic, said Merlin. But you can only use it after you've tried your hardest, said Morgan. And remember that it can only be used for the good of others. We'll remember, said Annie. Thank you, said Jack. He unbuckled his briefcase and carefully placed the silver wand inside. We must leave you now, said Merlin. He turned to Teddy and Kathleen. You may ride Dianthus home to Camelot. I will be along shortly, but first I would like to drive the taxi around New York City myself. Morgan, will you join me? Indeed, said Morgan. But drive a bit more slowly than Teddy, please. I promise nothing, said Merlin. He looked at Jack and Annie. Good evening to you, my friends. I will call again for you soon. Bye, said Jack and Annie. Merlin took Morgan's arm, and the two of them walked back to the taxi and climbed into the front seat. The big yellow car sputtered and then took off wildly. As it creamed up the avenue, Merlin blew its horn. Auga! Auga! Chapter 10, The Wand of Dianthus. Jack, Annie, Teddy, and Kathleen laughed. My, said Kathleen, I believe I would much rather ride Dianthus than go with Merlin. The white unicorn knelt in the snow. Kathleen and Teddy climbed onto its back. Dianthus stood up. Teddy smiled down at Jack and Annie. You know, it's just a very good honor to be given the Wand of Dianthus, he said. I know, Jack said shyly. Thanks for getting us at the right place at the right time. Hey, were you guys in Venice looking out for us too, said Annie? In Baghdad? In Paris? The two young enchanters looked at one another. Then they nodded their heads. "We knew it," said Annie. "Thanks for helping us. Thanks for giving us the book of magic rhymes," said Jack. "You're most welcome," said Teddy. "You know we must go. We hope to see you again soon." "Goodbye, Dianthus," said Annie. She stroked the unicorn's neck one last time. Dianthus lowered his head and stared at Annie with their soft blue eyes. They sparkled in the last live daylight. Annie stood on her toes and whispered in the unicorn's ears. Then she stepped back. Dianthus snorted and raised his head. Then he leaped forward. In a flash of silver, the unicorn and his two riders were gone. Standing in the cold dust, Annie stared silently into the distance. "What'd you say to him?" asked Jack. "I told him he had to go with Teddy and Kathleen," said Annie. She blinked black tears. "I told him they would show him the way home now." "Oh," said Jack. He put around Annie's back. "Don't worry. We'll see Dianthus again someday soon. I just know it." Annie smiled. "You're starting to sound like me," she said. "Uh-oh," said Jack. He shivered. Night was falling fast. "Ready?" "Sure, let's go," said Annie. She followed Jack to the treehouse ladder and up the rope ladder. They climbed inside the treehouse and looked out the window. The lights of New York City were starting to come on. A full moon was rising over the snow-covered park. "Hello, Blue Moon," said Jack. "Goodbye, Blue Moon," said Annie. Jack picked up the scroll from Merlin. He pointed to the words Frog Creek and Merlin's Knoll. "I wish we could go there," he said. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin faster and faster. Then everything was still, absolutely still. A cold wind blew through the Frog Creek woods. A few fat stars drifted into the tree. A few fat snowflakes drifted into the treehouse. Jack and Annie were dressed in their own clothes again. Jack's briefcase had turned back into his leather bag. Jack quickly opened it and the pack and looked inside. "Good," he said. The wand of Dianthus was still there. "Should we take it home with us?" asked Annie. "I think so," said Jack. "We can keep it for safekeeping until our next mission." He pulled out Teddy and Kathleen's book of magic rhymes. "I guess we can keep our rhymes as a souvenir," he said. "We won't be using them anymore. We've used up all the rhymes." He stuffed the book back into his backpack. "We haven't used all of them," said Annie. We still have one left, remember? Find a treasure you must never lose." "Oh, I already used that one," said Jack. "Come on, let's go." He grabbed his backpack and started down the rope ladder. "What do you mean you already used that one?" said Annie as she followed Jack down. "When did you use that rhyme?" Jack stepped onto the ground. How do you think I found you when you got lost in the park?" said Jack. "Wait, you thought I was a treasure?" said Annie. Jack shrugged. "I guess," he said. "At least today you did." And he smiled. "Cool," said Annie. "Thank you for finding me when you got lost." "Not me. You," said Jack. "You were the one who got lost." "No, you," said Annie. "You," said Jack. You, said Annie. Jack laughed. "Whatever," she said. "Let's go have some of Dad's hot chocolate." Snow began to fall harder as the cool wind rattled the bare trees of the Frog Creek woods. Jack and Annie hurried home. More facts for Jack, Annie, and you. The Great Depression. Today, older New York remembers of the Great Depression as one of the most difficult times in the history, lasting from 1929 to about 1939. The Depression was a time when all the Americans, as well as much of Europe, that suffered terrible economic problems that caused many people to lose their jobs. Subways. Today, millions of people ride New York subways every day. There are over 400 miles of tracks. Riders no longer drop coins or tokens into the turnstile, though. They now slide Metro card through the an electronic card reader. Central Park. Today, more than 250,000 people visit Central Park on a warm weekend, and picnics, jogs, skates, bicycles, listen to music or walk dogs. Designed over 150 years ago, Central Park was the first major park created entirely for public use. Its designers Frederick Law Almatis and Calvert Vaux believed that the nature could lift the spirits of city dwellers and bring together people from all walks of life. Belvedere Castle. Today, Belvedere Castle is in Central Park, served in a nature preserve. If you live in New York City, you have often heard on TV or radio the temperature in Central Park is. That information is coming from the weather instruments that are still housed in the castle. John D. Rockefeller. Today, American remembers John D. Rockefeller as once being the richest man in the country. After founding the Standard Oil Company, he focused on giving half of his money to a fortune. Through Rockefeller's generosity, a small museum to Fort Tryon Park in the northern part of the city was acquired by the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The museum is known as the Cloisters. Today, the Cloisters is filled with approximately 5,000 works of medieval art, including many works of Rockefeller's own medieval art collection, such as the famous unicorn tapestries. Unicorns. Today, unicorns appear in old stories from countries all over the world, most notably China, India, and medieval Europe. There is no proof that unicorns ever actually existed, though the only land animal with a single horn is a rhinoceros. Illustrator's note. I have illustrated all of the Magic Treehouse books, but illustrating Blizzard of the Blue Moon has been the most enjoyable so far. My research for the project brought back many fond memories because as a study, I often visit many of the places mentioned in the story, especially in Central Park, where I love to sketch. Since I still live close to New York City, I came to the city several times to follow the same route that Jack Nanny took from Central Park to the Cloisters. Many of the places in the story are not very different that they were in 1938, and I was able to sketch and photograph them. The taxis and the subway trains that changed, but I was able to find pictures of these books. Bye. See you next time. Hope to read again to you.